This evening we get to complete a process that we started about 2.5 years ago, which is the development and hopefully adoption this evening of a comprehensive sanitary sewer system plan for the City of Moscow. As far as I know, this is the first such utility comprehensive plan developed for the city. Here's what she looks like today. This is a document which has, frankly, a lot of information in it. The concept behind this plan is it really takes a look at our existing system. It assesses what types of deficiencies the system has within it today. The plan also looks at the growth projected within the city, in this case through a build-out scenario, which is in excess of 50 years of planning. It then also looks at the conditions that the system will have during that lifetime of planning, 50 years, or through 2050, excuse me, and identifies any challenges that the system may have in terms of capacity or the ability to provide service to the community as it grows. As part of the development of this plan, we have a hydraulic model, computer model that was created that will serve us for testing and analyzing the system for years to come. And then within the plan, it identified potential solutions for all of those problem areas that were noted earlier. In utilizing the hydraulic model, it could assess what types of solutions would be best to resolve any of those existing or future anticipated system problems. So all of that's within this document. Out of that also comes a capital improvement plan, which identifies those projects and potential estimated costs of what those projects would be. There's a summary of a timeline for which, in essence, priority projects should occur, so which ones should occur in the first 5 years, 5 to 10, and then beyond 10 to 20 years. So it's a document that is packed full of useful information. It will be used extensively by the engineering department and the sewer department of Public Works in the projects that we pursue in the years to come, and also in looking at development projects that may occur within the city. The effort of putting together this plan started about 2 years ago, as I mentioned earlier. We hired Keller Associates out of Meridian, Idaho, to perform the design of the document and write the document for us. They have done an admirable job, so I'm very pleased with what we have seen in this document. It was presented to the Public Works Finance Committee and then actually initially to the full council, on August 15th here at the beginning of the public comment period. That period ran for about 3 weeks. We received actually very little public comment on the document, primarily internally generated, and also some comments from the Department of Environmental Quality. All of those comments have been taken into consideration. Edits have been made to this final draft, and it is before you for hopefully adoption this evening. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Les. It's a powerful reminder to us to think ahead. I just returned from representing the Association of Idaho Cities at the League of Oregon Cities annual conference, and their highlight of the last day of the conference was horror stories from sewer systems gone awry, the lack of maintenance, a lack of forethought in funding and anticipating future needs. And they showed the camera views of these giant sinkholes forming and all the nastiness in the pipes that were no longer connected to each other and things like that. So we applaud you for thinking ahead and the forethought of our Public Works Finance Committee, which had a conversation about
Tim
it.
had his hand up.
Tim has a question? All right. Sure, please go ahead.
If I may. Thank you. Les, I'm looking on page 7.2, at least the last page, second to the last page of the report, which is the estimated capital improvement plan project costs. And I'm looking at the priority 1 improvements for 2012, line item 1A3, which is the North Main to North Polk 15-inch line replacement. And I guess when I was dashing through this, the thing that popped into my head was, well, that's several blocks and will impact not only the people that travel up and down D Street to the junior high school and beyond, but also the residents that actually live in that section. And I'm in hopes that when these kinds of projects occur, like the one on Hayes Street South Hayes, we must let the folks along that arterial in the impacted area know that the street's going to be torn up for a while. So my question is, we must have some sort of a public notice procedure when a project like this is going to start to let the residents know, one, that it's coming and how to negotiate around it.
If I may. You're absolutely right. We do need to do that, and we do.
Good.
The form varies a little bit by project and the scope of the project. Some of them are pretty large and significant, and so in those cases, we will sometimes have a public meeting, maybe out near the site, to help folks understand what's coming and why. We haven't had too many of the larger scale projects on utilities in recent years, so they've been generally the smaller ones, which we handle through either a letter or a door hanger approach, where we make contact with all the property owners within the area that will be doing the work. Part of the reason we do that, and has been the case on a number of our recent sewer projects, is often there are property owners who would like to upgrade or repair their sewer service while we're there. And so it gives them that opportunity to coordinate with the contractor that we bring in, get that work done while the street's torn up, all of those things, and get that out of the way. So we try to give folks notice, a year in advance if we can. Sometimes it's a little less than that. Anytime we have any kind of a significant utility project coming through their neighborhood.
So is this, just to pick one, this North Main to Polk Street project, is that a big project or from your conceptual point of view, a small one?
That one would be fairly good size. I will tell you, it is not currently scheduled for 2012. That was the projected plan when they put this together. There are some funding limitations, obviously, that we have to contend with. The project that is currently on the books to proceed, our next large project, is the 1A1, which is a 36-inch interceptor across Guywick's Field.
Oh.
That one will actually go into design and probably hit construction in 2013 because of the size of that project. With one like that, the others basically have
Get
to slip
pushed
back
down.
a little bit on the financial side. But yeah, any of those top four actually would be in that larger scale where we would want to make pretty direct contact with the folks that are being impacted.
And when we make direct contact, do we also suggest that this is a great opportunity to improve your residential
The services?
sewer system, or do they have to come up with that idea on their own?
No, we actually do suggest that as we're going through a neighborhood, because we'd prefer that people do that while we're there.
Got the ground
Rather than
torn
coming
up.
back in 2 years and saying, oh, I have a failure and have to tear up your street or do something to that effect.
And then if I could, one final question. In the next priority for 2015, 2B, there's the possibility of standby power to all lift stations. Can you tell me how many lift stations do not have power assist at this time?
At this point, there are 3 that do not. We have 5 lift stations. One has on-site power generation already, which was the South Lift Station, constructed a few years back. This summer, actually in the last month, we just completed adding standby power to the Mall Lift Station by making a connection actually to the wastewater treatment plant. Somewhat of an ingenious approach my staff developed. And then there are 3 others out there that do not yet have standby power.
And the suggestion here is that could be, all 3 of them could be done for $175,000 in today's dollars?
It really does depend on the type of system, but yeah, I suspect that would very easily be done within that range.
Thank you.
Sue?
I saw on the list that there's somewhere in the continuum taking the Orchard Street lift offline and taking the southeast one offline. So would that still leave us with 5?
Well, that would drop us down to 3.
I mean, but we're not going
certainly.
to be replacing.
It really depends upon the timing of those. The Orchard is in a priority 3, which puts it out by 2030 happening.
Okay.
That particular one depends a lot upon development in that area. There is a route where a gravity main could be installed, which makes the pump station not needed anymore. So if that land were to develop in that time frame, we would look to have that main installed and then could take that pump station offline.
So
A
do you
similar
think-
situation on the southeast. if there is development that occurs down along Palouse River Drive in time, that main coming from US 95 would be extended all the way to the east till it reached the pump station, and the pump station is not needed anymore.
One more question. I saw on 1B, the Troy Road White Avenue Interceptor. I'm kind of happy to hear that it's moved down the line, because would that just tear up the road that we just fixed?
No, it will be constructed outside of the road.
Okay.
Walter?
Thank you, ma'am. Les, in the same chart, Table 7.1 on page 7.2 that Tim started with, your item 2B calls for standby power at all lift stations, yet back on page 612, you had changed it from all to 3. Has the pricing changed to reflect 3 as opposed to all in the table? Or does it need to?
At this stage, I would say it probably doesn't need to. Again, every station's a little different, and the manner in which we approach it when we get into detailed design may vary from what we think it is today. As we get into a specific site, there may be some issues that would arise that perhaps make some sites more expensive than others. So I'd just assume be a little bit on the high side if we've actually hit that point. So I think we're probably okay.
Continuing on the same thing, does the table description need to be changed to reflect the fact that you're only doing 3 of the 4 per the text in the other preceding part of the document?
We certainly could, yes. We can catch that.
Walter?
And staying with the table, I want to thank Tim for leading me there. You answered my follow-up question about, are we going to do all 4 items under improvements 2012? Answer being no, that they aren't funded yet. Are we creating any exposure to ourselves to adopt a plan that states something that we know is not going to happen, such as that?
I really don't believe so. As obviously, anytime you create a planning document, you're giving it your best shot as to when the things will occur, what the prices will be, what the priorities will be, and what order in which they will occur. As you well know, any of those things can change at any given time. A schedule can be adjusted by some outside factor that may come into play. The intent of these and setting priorities is to try to establish that out of all the projects that are identified, simply that these are the ones that the city really should consider first. And they did try to provide us a timeline on when we should attempt to do those, but in full recognition that the funding that's necessary to do those is dependent on many things, not the least of which is the ongoing rate study, which will occur after this is adopted, will come to completion after this is adopted, in which the rate study will look at whether or not we can afford to do these on this schedule. And it may be that in the process of doing that analysis, our rate study consultant may come back and say, well, yes, we can, but it's going to require a rate increase of X percentage. The council may determine that that is not something we're comfortable with. And it may even be at a staff level that we say, that seems too much, so let's scale it back, push some of these a little bit further out. So all of those things are still in play, and the long answer to your question, but I don't believe that there's anything in this document that commits us to a fixed timeline and priority that would create that kind of situation you're concerned about.
And just to finish, the others read by 2015, by 2030, et cetera, while that priority 1 does state 2012.
It does.
We're being asked to approve the document when you're already telling us that you don't see any way to, at this time, fund the 2012 $3,908,000.
Not in its entirety.
I understand how things change perfectly well, but they can change tomorrow after we were to approve it tonight, not knowing new information, but tonight, having been told that we don't anticipate, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't positioning ourselves for DEQ or someone to say, yes, but you said.
If I may.
Gary?
It's actually, DEQ is one of the agencies that encourages us to have these planning documents. As Les, I think, has said very succinctly, things change. Based upon our system, the documentation that was presented to the consultants, this is where the money should be spent in order to keep the system as viable as possible. Also, it's like any other system that if things changed, if the economy changes, population growth doesn't occur in the places that we think it would, then the plan will change. So it's a dynamic document, and I think the regulatory agencies will look upon this as stability and a look forward more than anything else.
And
Okay.
if I may, just to follow up on that, we have received DEQ approval of this document. They have received the
good.
final draft. We have the letter now in hand that approves the document as presented.
Thanks, Les. Tom?
I was just going to say that it seems like as things change, we could, on an occasional basis, draft a letter to the document that just says, here are how the city council currently sees the priorities to change, and then just submit the letter to the document so that there's some kind of record on file as we proceed through time. You know, I mean, we've got a timeline that takes us out to 1530, 2060. I mean, you know, it's a long time. We're not committing any future councils or any future funding years to anything by law anyway. So I think that it's fine the way it's drafted. And, you know, I think that probably the most important priority is going after what Sue's always mentioning, which is to make sure that we're not, you know, paving a street and then the next week or year digging it up to do a sewer line. So as long as we can queue those projects up, then I'm happy.
Les?
Maybe just one quick follow-up. There is verbiage in here that talks about the fact that, you know, this is a long-range planning document, and the timelines that are here are based upon growth projections that were developed through the Land Use Comprehensive Plan, and some extensions even beyond the length of that plan. Obviously, as you start getting out several years, the potential for growth and what happens in the economic environment and all of those things can go a lot of different directions. So we're taking the best view we can as to where we think it will go, planning the document. The timeline that's in here is helpful, honestly, but it's something that, anytime you put something like this together, you anticipate that something is going to change. And we may hit these right on the time dates that are specified. We may not. Some of it is growth dependent, and so it's even out of our control in that regard.
Sue?
I think the key word at the title of that table 7.1 is estimated. Kind of covers it all.
Wayne?
I think it's also important to note, in the notes below, that the costs of the above table don't include approximately $718,000 per year just for pipeline rehabilitation and replacement, nor does it include any upgrades to the actual wastewater treatment plant for increased flows.
That's correct.
So, this table is a great table. I mean, this is a roadmap of where we need to go down the road and the things that we need to do, and I think this is an excellent thing to have. But it's also something that's going to have to remain flexible as money is available, right?
Yes.
And as other needs become more paramount, possibly,
Correct.
right?
Absolutely.
So, Wayne, the Public Works Finance Committee had a second look at this.
We
this
did.
Lately. Anything new come up on that?
Not really. We had a few questions. I think there were more questions raised tonight that were, very good questions. I was particularly interested in the discussion on treated effluent and recycling the water for parks and recreation usages, and maybe someday even for residential use. Sue has brought up over the years different discussions about purple pipe and trying to lay purple pipe when we're replacing other stuff. Right along with your railroad tracks, I think that's been one of your important things. But I think that's a good discussion to continue to have as we look at what are we going to be doing with our wastewater treatment plant as it's phase 5?
Yes. Next.
Or possibly putting in a chiller, or what are we doing? So With that, I'm going to make a recommendation or make a motion that we accept the report.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the action requested was adoption of the comprehensive sewer system plan, and Walter had suggested some language pertaining to modification of the table to indicate 3, not all, lift stations.
I would, Madam Mayor, I'd leave that up to Les's discretion. Having brought up the question, I'll let him make the decision, if it's all right.
All right, so Wayne,
So
anyway,
that-
the requested action, please.
Sure, I'll just, as your discretion to change that, and I'll make a motion that we adopt the comprehensive sewer system plan.
That's what I was trying to second.
The motion, was that, what was that? Was that a
That was a
second?
second,
Okay, Wayne's motion, Tom's second. Is there further discussion?
I just, if you change anything, do you have to submit it to DEQ for approval again?
Not something of that nature.
Oh,
no.
good. Okay. In that case, I'm happy.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll start
As long as we're on
the
the same page.
roll call vote with Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Les. We appreciate your work on that.
You're channeling.